Okay, today we're going to learn how to make Vietnamese chicken pho using the Instapot and a Costco rotisserie chicken. I'll cover all the ingredients you need for the stock, and then in the second part of the video we'll talk about the veg and all the other items you'll need. So what you see in front, I've already got my Instapot filled with water and sauteing right now. You'll notice I haven't filled it all the way because I haven't added the chicken and everything else yet, which is going to, of course, raise the water level. And we don't want it to be all the way to top full. I've done it with the chicken in all the way to the top, and you'll have overflow, and when you release the steam, it's really messy. So I'd say you want to leave at least a good inch to inch and a half or more space between the top of the lid and the bottom once you have all your items in. So the main things you need are rock sugar, kosher salt. This is my kind of spice blend, which includes sticks of cinnamon. We have star anise seed, and a little bit of clove. And today I'm actually going to use a lot less than I normally do because I want to have with chicken pho, usually you have a much clearer broth. And because I've added so much of these aromatics, it actually makes the broth really dark. So normally I do I would say double or triple this amount of the clove and star anise. Today I'm just going to I did 4 star anise and a pinch of clove, and basically the equivalent of 1 cinnamon stick. You're also going to need some ginger root. So I just took 3 little nubs here, did a quick peel on the outside for my ginger root. A yellow onion, and actually I put all of the spices or aromatics into one of these little spice tea baskets. If you don't have one of these, then you can just use a little satchel like this to place all your spices in, because that will make the broth so much cleaner and easier. Once it's done, you can just pull one of these out and toss it basically. And here's what the white lump candy or white lump sugar looks like. It's just rock candy. I use an equivalent of a handful of my palmful, basically, of like this. And I used 3 tablespoons of kosher salt. And we're also going to use fish sauce. Recommend the 3 Crab brand here. And we're going to do basically your salt and your fish sauce is equal. So 3 tablespoons kosher salt, 3 tablespoons fish sauce, and a handful of lump sugar rock candy. So I turned this on saute already, so that way we can get the hot water going. And we're just going to now add our lump sugar to the bottom of that. Look at that. Already simmering. That's cool, right? Now we're going to add our salt. Okay. I'm going to take my ginger root and just plop one in each corner. I'm going to take my yellow onion, just whole, like this. Trimmed off the ends and just took off the outer, but just to leave it whole. Plop it in as well. I'm going to take all of my aromatics here, place them into this basket. Close this up. Just like that. And then I'm going to pop this in there. And then for our chicken, now we're using a half-eaten Costco chicken. So normally it's a lot prettier than this. And since we already kind of cut into it, I just basically tied it up some more to help it keep it in as much form as possible. And we're just going to drop this, don't drop, but slowly place this into the water like so. And you can see that water rose up to already that almost a 7-quart mix. So see, that gives me that good 1.5 inches that I was looking for up top. Now the rest of the flavorings here from the Costco chicken, I would add it. I think it adds that extra flavor, umami we want. So I personally will put in all of these little fat pieces here into the broth as well. Then you close it up, put it on high pressure cook for 25 minutes. Hit start, close the lid of course, and let the magic happen. And we'll come back in 25 minutes and when we open this all up. Now I'll show you how to do the veg prep. So you can see there's just 1 minute left on our high pressure cook. And now time's up. So when that's up, you want to definitely turn on the vent here. Depending on your pressure cooker, you want to release the steam. Like that, release the steam, let it do its thing. Now we're going to show you veg prep. For veg, what you need is a bunch of green onion, cilantro with the stem, real important we use the stem, and a white onion. So all these 3 things are basically your garnish for your veg. I'll show you how we prep them. So for our cilantro, you want to use the entire cilantro including the stem, but we're gonna just trim off just the very end pieces here. So I'm just gonna take those off, discard that. And you want a pretty rough chop on your veg. So I'd say probably that looks like 1/8 of an inch. You can go finer. Sometimes people don't like it as much, but I want to definitely do a nice coarse chop. Now because the leaves are so much larger and leafy, I'll tend to do a cross cut after I do this coarse chop on the leaves. So how I do that is I just take my knife and I go crisscross just to help refine that. And that is how you prep your cilantro. It's a good idea to mix it too so you get that stem mixed in with the greens. And what we always have ready is we use a Tupperware for all the veg. Show this, Phoebe. So after I dice it, make sure you, of course, wash this first. Thoroughly wash your cilantro, because cilantro can be pretty dirty. So I washed it, I put it into a salad spinner to get rid of the excess moisture. And now I've chopped it. And that's gonna be all for garnish in our bowl. Now the next step is our green onion. So we don't need the very bottom of the green onion. You actually can trim it basically right where the green starts. So you can cut all of this off basically. Show this, Phoebe.
I am.
You can cut this part off. And then we can actually, if you're like most Asians, you'll stick this in a cup of water and start growing it again. Now we're gonna chop our green onion. And this is all garnish, so you want this to be pretty delicate too. So I'm gonna take off the very ends here. We don't need all this. And I can have it. And you want to do this a little bit finer. Just to give you an idea, this is about how thick you want them. Pretty small. Last step is our white onion garnish. You really just need half a white onion. You don't need the whole thing. But I'll just have the onion like. So we'll take this. I'll actually peel out the outer layer. Definitely don't want that outer thick layer because definitely it does not taste good. So take off the outermost layers of the onion. So get down to where it's really soft. And you know it's tasty to eat. So we'll also trim off our onion like so. And next what we need to do is finely slice them. So this is too thick. You definitely don't want onion to be this thick. You want to get really thin slices. Kind of like this. So really thin slices like this. Okay. Now, to save a lot of time, if you've got a mandolin, we can use a mandolin. to slice it. So I've got it set on my thinnest slice setting. You can just take it one swipe down. And here's some ideally really thin slices of onion. That you want them paper thin, basically. Okay, so using a mandolin definitely gets you the best cut and way more efficient. I can do all this really fast. So bottom here, this is what you want to end up with. So here's what your veg prep should all look like at the end. You've got your minced green onion, minced cilantro, and thinly sliced white onion for garnish. Opening up her broth. Ooh. Fun thing, I never learned the Instapot had a little holder. If you stick this in there, you could hold it. Learned a new thing. Instapot holder right there. So, wow. This broth is a lot clearer than, definitely a lot clearer than what my normal broth would look like. Now the hardest part here is taking out the chicken, and then you're gonna want to have a big bowl ready on the side to take your hot chicken. I would recommend using probably 2 pairs of tongs for this because the chicken can be slippery. And then you can take your onion out and strain the rest of the broth. I like to leave all the fat on the top layer. Some people will skim out the fat, but personally I think the fat gives a lot more flavor to the broth. So I always leave it in there. When you're prepping your chicken, you don't need the skin. You can leave the skin. I personally eat the skin, it's great. But then you'll just take your chicken out and then let it cool for a bit and then start ripping it apart with a fork into little pieces. So now you can see I've taken the chicken out, taken the onion out, I've taken my little spice basket out. What's left is here the broth, and you can see there's still some little pieces of chicken, so I recommend just taking a little strainer, sifting through it a few passes. You want the broth to be as clean or clear as possible. So you can see just all that. Rinse it off, repeat until you get your broth as clear as possible. So I've skimmed the broth, or not skimmed it, I've strained the broth. You can see it's not perfectly clear here, but I'm pretty happy with that. Definitely recommend tasting it. It's gonna be really hot, but make sure you get a good taste. See if you need to adjust more sugar or salt. This is the time to do that. So a lot of people, including myself, really like to have some pickled onion too, pickled white onion. And so to do that, I've already got a teaspoon of sugar in the bottom of this cup here. And then I'm gonna add some rice wine vinegar to my sugar. Don't need a lot. And so I've got about that much with sugar. I'm gonna give it a little stir. We're gonna also add some water as well too. You want about almost a 1-to-1 ratio of water and vinegar on this, but I'm just gonna stir that a little bit so the sugar has some time to dissolve. Add in my water. Okay, so I got that much now. I'm gonna mix it up. And then this is your brining pickling liquid for your green onion or white onion. Nice little stir. Looks pretty dissolved from my perspective. Yeah, actually give it a little taste. Tastes pickled. Take some of your white onions here that you've diced or sliced. Go and drop it in. And that only needs about 10 minutes or so, and then they'll be nice and pickled. Adds a nice different level of taste to your pho. I just give a little stir like that. Let it sit for 10 minutes, then you'll have pickled white onions. So here's how the chicken looks like after I've separated it from the carcass, and you've seen I've got some slices are kind of big, some smaller. Right, definitely be prepared. This chicken will be hot, and I actually shred this entire thing just with my hands, so be prepared for hot chicken. That's why it's nice to let it cool down while you're prepping your veg. And here's all the rest of the carcass. And to be honest, this was only like, you know, 3/4 of a chicken. We already ate some of the chicken beforehand, and this is even probably way too much chicken than you really need for the whole pot of pho. Of course, it depends on how much protein you like in your pho, but you know, our little kids don't eat that much, so this is probably too much chicken. So I would recommend for us eating half the chicken and using the other half of the carcass to make pho. So now that I've cut my noodles, I'm placing them into this little wire basket. You may not have something like this, and that's okay if you don't. If you don't, you just need some sort of strainer like this, for example. But I'm portioning, you know, by cutting it, I can portion it out much better. This is about how much I'm gonna have today. I've got my water rolling boil here, and you wanna dip this and stir it for about only 5-6 seconds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The reason you don't need to do any longer than that, because these are pretty thin, delicate noodles. If you go longer, then you're gonna overcook them. Plus, you're gonna be adding the hot soup too, which will continue to cook the noodles. So we've got our noodles in the bowl here. I'm gonna come over and then garnish my plate. I also forgot to show earlier, most important too, you gotta have fresh lime. This is definitely a must-have in your pho. You're gonna go ahead and squeeze that lime all over the top. So first I'm gonna add some chicken to my pho, my bowl. So you can add as little or as much as you like. That looks pretty good for me. I separate my meat from white and dark meat too, so I'll add 1 dark meat. This is actually probably more than I would normally eat, but. And then we add our veg to it. So now I want to lay down my white onion first and kind of spread it out a little bit in there. I'm gonna add my green onion, just a whole pinch full, and then cilantro. I personally like a lot of greens and cilantro, so I just dump a whole bunch in. And then you pour your hot soup on top, add your lime juice, if you didn't know, you can stick your Instapot lid right there. Now find my ladle, where to go. Okay. Now I've got the Instapot just on the keep warm. You can see it's still pretty hot. If you wanted to have this boiling, you could heat it up to saute again, but I don't think that's needed. I find 3 scoops of broth is plenty. Some people like a little more, some people like a little less. And there you go. Chicken pho. We did this all in under an hour. Really getting everything into the pot was like 15-20 minutes. Then it's on autopilot. You do the veg prep, noodle prep. You can have this all done within probably 45 minutes. Oh. And here's that lime. I said you want to take a fresh squeeze of lime. Squeeze it on top. I'm also going to add some of that pickled onion too. I really like pickled onions, so I'm going to add this. And also it's good to have, I didn't have it today, but cilantro, not cilantro, excuse me, Thai basil is really good to add, and bean sprouts. So adding a little fresh bean sprout on the side, some shredded Thai basil, really makes this delicious too, but I don't have any today. So here's my completed bowl. I also added some hoisin sauce and some sriracha, lime juice, pickled onion, and yes, we're gonna just dig in now. Look at that. Enjoy!